You feel trapped. There's no way out. You know there's more to life than this 9 to 5, but there's so many options and scams out there that it's impossible to choose the right path to escape. If this is you, then you're going to want to watch the rest of this video, because that's the exact thought process that I had back in 2019, and 5 years later, I'm free, working 100% remotely. I'm not in the rat race anymore, and I can confidently say that I'm happy. Growing up, I'd romanticized the idea of being a stockbroker. Not for the reasons you might think. I wasn't really into flashy cars or flashy watches. I've never been into materialistic things, and I'm not saying that as a stunt. I just have been blessed that I've just never given a shit about that kind of thing. What I've always cared about, though, is freedom, and I realized in this game of capitalism that we all play and actively participate in, unfortunately, to be free, you need to build up as much money as you possibly can. And for me and my skill set, I knew I wasn't going to be a physicist, or I wasn't going to be a doctor or a lawyer. I didn't have those skills, but I did have interpersonal skills. So I thought, if I double down on this finance route, stockbroking is my escape route. Cut to 2016, I've graduated from university, and I'm on my second day at a stockbroking firm. It's a very small one. I wasn't able to get into any of the bigger ones. And on my second day, I'm handed this list. And I start ringing around these numbers when I start to notice that there's some differences in the voices that I'm ringing. They seem a little bit more confused by what I'm trying to sell them. They seem almost like they can't comprehend this idea of investing alone, let alone the particular asset that I'm trying to convince them to invest in. I then go on the lunch break and I'm with another one of the junior brokers, and he says to me, "Oh yeah, you got given the deaf book, didn't you?" It was at this point he explained to me that they give all new brokers this book called the Deaf Book, which is all these old people who are potentially going to pass away soon, and because they care less about these clients, because they might not be around in the future, they don't care about ruining those relationships. But at the same time, the junior broker is judged on his ability to close those clients, i.e. those people in the last years of their life. So I couldn't really take it any longer. I sat there contemplating it for maybe 45 more minutes, and then just while the CEO was on a call to some other investors, I just wrote on a piece of paper, "I can't do this anymore. Sorry for wasting time." Gave him the piece of paper and walked out. And I stayed in finance for a little bit longer, but I always knew after that moment that the corporate world just was not for me. And so I had to get to the drawing board and find things what to do. And so I'm going to tell you here the exact plan that I devised and how I escaped the rat race. And this is something that you can implement yourself. So the absolute first thing that I did is I got myself a safety net. I didn't want to just quit the corporate world and have no income at all, because I knew that would put insane pressure on me, and that's kind of like a single swim situation. And a lot of people have been very successful with that, and a lot of people preach do one thing, and I'm completely on board with that. I actually think they're probably right. You're probably more likely to be super successful if you just do one thing. But that wasn't my goal. I didn't want to be an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos. I just wanted to escape the rat race. And there's millions of people out there, or there must be hundreds of thousands of people out there who have their own little businesses that are self-sustaining, and they don't have to work in the corporate world. So I knew that I could do it. Anyway, the first step I did was creating a safety net. So for me, that was I went and I did a PT, so personal training qualification, on the side of my corporate job. This meant that when I handed in my notice, I was a fully qualified personal trainer, and worst case scenario, I could be doing some things on the side. Not when I say worst case scenario, not that personal training is a bad job, it's an incredible job. But I knew that there would be a demand for it, and I was quite fit and active at the time, so I knew it would be an easy sell for me to do. A lot of people at that time were asking me for advice and tips. Obviously now I'm completely out of shape, so that doesn't happen. But back then, believe it or not, I was. And so that was the first thing, was building a safety net. The second thing I did within the safety net was I also had other options. So I looked at freelancing things like, delivering Uber, doing Uber driving, all of that kind of stuff that could I knew I had a safety net. The one for me was Amazon deliveries. I really like the idea of that. No boss, you scan in, you pick up like these parcels and you're off. And so that was the first step, was building a safety net. The second thing I did is I found a real world problem that I could solve. Okay, so instead of finding some business idea that I'm not passionate about, I needed to find a problem that I cared about and I wanted to solve. And I was very fortunate to have something put on my lap from a very close friend, which was an app to find healthy food items in your area. And so the problem we were trying to solve was that the people who work in the City of London, for example, you're very limited on healthy choices for food. So you either end up getting, like, say for example, if you're in the lower income brackets, like we would have been as juniors, you'd end up getting a meal deal from Sainsbury's or Tesco's, which is basically a sandwich and some crisps and a fizzy drink. And then as you sort of got up the ladder, you'd be eating maybe just like chips and meats and things from stalls. But really and truly, there wasn't that culture that you have now in America, like with chopped and tortilla. That didn't really exist. And so there was a few up and coming, and we wanted to highlight them and make them a lot more accessible through discounts. So we made it cheaper, but most importantly, just having a single app where you can go and find healthy food items. You'd have to worry about Google Maps and skimming through the fast food places. You could just simply easily get some healthy food in the city of London. Now, this meant that I was super passionate about what I was doing, right? Like, there was more meaning to it. It wasn't just about me escaping the rat race. There was a problem that I was going to solve and help other people. And the message behind this point is that the world is bigger than just you. So if you can find something that's important to other people where you can help them, then when your motivation drops for yourself, you can be picked up by the idea that you're helping other people and they're relying on you. So that's the second point, is to find a problem you want to solve that you're passionate about. The first step I did is I straight away got building that product. I didn't worry about buying books or doing an online course or paying for a coaching from anyone at all. I didn't pay for a single thing when I decided to learn to code and build this solution for this problem that we found. All I did was try and build it. I did that through YouTube tutorials, finding code online of other apps, and just trying to plug the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, obviously at that time, it meant I wasn't an out-and-out software engineer, and that is completely fine. You're not trying to find a job at this point. You're trying to acquire skills that solve problems. And so focus on building the solution to the problem. Don't worry about being book smart, because the harsh reality is that you're going to learn 80% of what you learn, you will never actually implement. And what you can do is while you're building these solutions, you'll actually subtly your brain will recognize what's relevant and what's not. So for example, in the world of coding, there's stuff like, for example, data structures and algorithms. You can go so deep on those and end up spending probably a whole year learning them. And if you don't build something first, you won't understand that, okay, you only actually need to touch the surface on that to build stuff. It becomes different when you get more complex, but really for the stuff that we're talking about here, you can just touch the surface. And if you don't start building straight away and you go into textbooks instead, you're going to really struggle because it's going to take a lot longer. Cut to 6 months later, and our app was valued at 7 figures. We'd had investment of over 6 figures into the app, and I was being offered salaries up to 4 times what I was on to go and help people build their apps. All from the skills that I'd learned by myself, without a corporate job, without a mentor, without a coach, none of that. So you can do all of this yourself without any of that stuff. You don't need to pay for courses. You don't need to have a boss at work who mentors you. The harsh reality of that is it tends to be a bit of a myth, because those bosses, they have families who are going to be always way more important to them than the juniors at their work. So anytime that they're not working, unfortunately, they're going to want to be spending with their family. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, if you put yourself in their shoes, you'd do the same thing. So of course, they'll help you here and there when they can. And I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. There's lots of great business people and mentors out there, but it's up to you whether you decide to bank on that or not, because the chances are there's going to be someone who just wants to get in and out of that office and home to their family. So if you can resonate with this video and you think learning to code might be your escape route, I'm going to leave a link to a video where you can get started straight away and learn how to use Python, which is a super beginner-friendly programming language that you can get up and running within about 10 minutes. So yeah, good luck, and I hope this is helpful.